So you've probably heard of the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. Well, apparently the full phrase is, jack of all trades, master of none, but better than one. And so that's how I have found to accept myself. Because there's this idea that I stumbled upon about, it's called the M-shaped mind. And it's like, you have a person with an M-shaped mind. This one video talks about, so you have all these unfinished projects that you created, that you started with such enthusiasm, from watching, from trying to learn Japanese or a new way to cook, to all of a sudden developing an urgent need to learn jujitsu. That's really insightful. This is something I've struggled with all my life. I mean, I've never really fit in because I've had all of these interests, but I do have solid interests. And that's what an M-shaped mind does have, is one or two solid interests, but many other additional interests, secondary perhaps. For example, a significant interest of mine has been law. I practiced it for a couple of years and then was a professor for quite a number of years in a university undergraduate program. And the other area is in social sciences. Social science. I studied and got a PhD in a social science that studied institutional behavior. And so those are my two solid areas, but there's a lot of crap that I'm also interested in. And so it becomes difficult at times to live in a world where people are not that way. So I found this particular video to be quite liberating, and not have to worry about people getting out their butterfly nets. Of course, the week is not over yet, so that could still happen. I'm walking my dog here at the moment, who's intent on eating pine cones. That worked for Ewell Gibbons at one time, but Ewell Gibbons is no longer living, so I don't know if the pine cones had anything to do with it. So what I ultimately found, other than an irritating dog, is to find a niche, a pre-existing niche. And that's really going to be difficult for people like me at first glance because of all my other interests. But it could be ideal is if you find something along the lines of something that has, if you're like me, has an M-shaped mind with multiple interests, is find other creators in a specific niche that use that M-shaped mind instead of trying to adapt, because Google and YouTube are search engines, and so they recognize and value and reward individual niches. So how can you get an M-shaped mind into an individual niche? Well, find other creators that are successful, that are M-shaped. And that's, I think, a very helpful observation for me. Instead of me trying to create a niche out of whole cloth, go with an existing one, because find others like you. They are out there. They may be difficult to find, but by combining two unrelated niches, is probably going to confuse YouTube, because it's trying to figure out who your audience is. But if you give it an example and you follow a competitor and follow their videos and make it your own, not plagiarize, but put your own spin on it based upon your experience, that's the better way to go. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. And because when I was a professor, I recognized, and this was one of my better choices, is that I should be in a department that is interdisciplinary, instead of just merely one discipline, like criminal justice or law or politics or sociology. So that made a significant difference in the quality of my life. Of course, at the same time, is that because I wasn't in a narrow discipline, is that people thought I was strange, but people have always thought that of me. So the other final thing that I've come to recognize along these same lines is this necessity of not just finding your niche, but finding a healthy niche. And what I mean by that is that I've been a reformer all my life in a variety of ways. And at this stage of my life, now that I'm retired, it's exhausting. I need to find a healthy way to let that go. Because I've served my time, so to speak. Not in prison, but in this idea of reform. And I'm tired. And I want to enjoy my life. And so, my life now, in the present instead of the past. So, when you pick a niche, you could pick a niche which, based on your background, but you probably have several things going on in your background, so is there a more healthier niche? For example, I could do a niche that involved the reacting to the 24/7 news cycle, but I'd be a basket case because the news is so negative and biased. And so I find that exhausting. And that would be too heavy for this place in my life. So when you find a niche, find one that is healthy. I hope this helps. I hope the sound is good. See you next time.